Welcome everybody. So thank you so much for finding the time to do this. I will give my best to give you value for that time because I know there are so many things that you could be doing right now. Just before we start, I just wanted to preface this by saying that some of you might already know that I had the good fortune a couple of years ago to have my business life turned completely upside down. It's a long story with some bad decisions in it, but the biggest bad decision was when I decided a few years ago to spend $5 million on buying a resort in Noosa, which was not even slightly RTO related, and that's probably the problem, but that had a ripple effect on, oops, everything else. What have I done? Just kill the slide, sorry. Anyway, I had a ripple effect. I lost that money that I invested. I'm bringing that up because at this time I feel incredibly fortunate that I've got a degree of immunity, if we're allowed to use that word at the moment, to disruption after that experience. So my focus in the last couple of weeks has really been about how can I, when this current crisis isn't really phasing me, how can I help some people who are feeling it and who are getting clobbered? Anyway, that was a bit of a personal introduction, sorry, for an RTO webinar, but I just wanted to share that I do get the feelings that happen when the proverbial is hitting the fan, and if it helps one person to know this, then please believe me that sometimes the biggest disaster is the biggest opportunity. And for some RTOs, of course, you're already seeing the opportunity, especially if you're a domestic RTO with online courses. And I think all of us in RTO land have lived with disruption for years. You know, it's like, unlike people that are running your kind of traditional business where they've been able to go business as usual for some time, it feels like for the last 10 years in RTOs, it's been like, okay, what's the next thing that's going to clobber us? So I think for some of us, some RTO people are probably feeling like, oh yeah, just another challenge. And then for some of you, you might be feeling like it's the last straw. So I was thinking about what I could do to help. And I thought of at least 3 things right now that would be useful. Or actually I thought of 4, because last week I ran a webinar for a local Chamber of Commerce about the quick, cheap tools that you can use if you're getting your team to work remotely. So like Zoom is an obvious one that the whole world has discovered, but there are a bunch of others as well. So that's not on today's topic, but if anyone does want a recording of that, just let me know and I'll flick it out to you. So just before we start on the actual content, just some general housekeeping things. Happy to take questions all the way through. If they're a question that I'm about to answer, then I might not answer it straight away, but I will come back to it. And then I'm making sure that we leave plenty of time for questions at the end as well. So if you want to use the Q&A or the chat, doesn't really matter for questions. I've got the Q&A up on my screen, so that's probably easier, but I will check the chat from time to time as well. And I can see that at least one of my colleagues is online, and they will let me know if there's any questions that I missed too. So back to the main points. I've only got a handful of slides for this session, as I thought it would be more useful if I just talk these ideas through with you, but I decided to do it as a webinar rather than a podcast so that we can have plenty of time for questions and answers. So I thought I would talk to you about a couple of the short-term opportunities that I'm seeing right now for RTOs, and then I have a guest who I'm bringing on who has a very interesting tool for RTOs, specifically for RTOs and colleges, that you may or may not have heard of. And I was brainstorming with him the other day about how he could offer that in a way that's useful to you guys right now. And by useful, I mean it doesn't cost you time or capital up front, kind of useful. So I think you'll find that it's worth a listen. And then after that, I have left some time for questions for either of us on the topics that we've raised, or pretty much on any other what do I do about this right now kind of question. Okay, so let's go to the first opportunity. Does someone just want to confirm to me that we're still good for audio and slides, and you can see my hi and welcome 3 tools slide at the moment? Awesome, thank you. Thank you. Okay, first thing. I have got some information for you about advertising costs because they're ridiculously cheap right now. But first, before we talk about the costs, let's talk about what you should actually be advertising. So first of all, the messaging. don't use the C word for a couple of reasons. I think one is for technical logistical reasons. If you are doing any kind of email out, if you're creating any sort of Facebook ad or any other social ad, if you mention coronavirus or COVID or virus or any of those words like that, then a lot of the email platforms are filtering out emails with those words in them. Now, you wouldn't think so by the number of emails that you would have been receiving from every company that you've ever dealt with in the last 20 years going, here's our coronavirus strategy. But believe me, there is a lot of filtering going on and deliverability is dropping. Plus also, not just from the technical point of view, but from the, I guess, communication with customers point of view, they kind of already know. Other than my friend's sister who rang her last week, who lives in San Francisco, and said, I just went to get toilet paper and there wasn't any. What's going on? I think pretty much everybody except for Beth knows that there's a virus thing happening right now. So you don't need to mention it. You don't need to point that out. People already know. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a second. So don't use the C word, but also one of the things we have to be really careful of in RTO land is don't be offensively perky, I guess. Like, don't do the whole fake annoying positivity, because there's a lot of people, especially our customers, our potential students right now, who are not feeling even slightly perky. I mean, our perfect student probably for a lot of us right now, especially for those that are doing B2C marketing, is a person who's just been stood down from their job. And, you know, sort of fake positivity is probably going to really annoy them right now, which means for a lot of RTOs that our usual advertising, which talks about pay rises and promotions and opportunities and the future that you can have if you do a course, needs to be modified a little bit. In the sense that if you are going to talk about future opportunities, it needs to be future opportunities with an acknowledgement that things might not be great right now for a lot of people. Does that make sense? So, you know, maybe less about pay rises and promotions and maybe more about securing your future, you know, when things recover. So you do want to be solving problems in your marketing, but I think that I'm starting to see that people are getting a little bit over the, hey, this is great, it's all going to be great kind of stuff. But then you also don't want to join them in the hole if they're wallowing in a hole. So let's just talk about pure old marketing capitalism for a moment, as I just want to point out something that I'm seeing that is not really necessary or effective right now. So think about when you're writing, sorry, I'm jumping around a bit, forgive me. I'm just, as I'm thinking of these things, I want to make sure I mention them. Normally when you're doing marketing, right, so you create some sort of an ad. It might be on social, it might be even a Google ad, it might be an email that you're sending out to people. And there's a pretty old, basic, direct marketing kind of a process, which usually says people are complacent. You need to figure out what their pain point would be. You need to aggravate the pain, and then you need to present them with a solution. So that would be typically on the education side. It might be, you know, trying to get people out of their complacency about their current job and thinking that they need to retrain to, you know, protect themselves in the future, get themselves a promotion, whatever. And, you know, one of our biggest challenges traditionally as RTO marketers is urgency. You know, people will inquire, but getting them to go from I've inquired to I want to enroll right now is usually a pretty big challenge, as we know. You know, we used to get in our RTO, we would get people who would turn up 2 years later after they'd inquired and finally enroll. And it wasn't that uncommon, actually. It was about 20% of our enrollments. So 2 things that are completely different right now. One is, for the first time in the history of the RTO universe that I can think of it, suddenly people have urgency. As in that course that they were thinking about doing for a long time, now they need to do it. And, you know, that can be because they've been stood down. It can be because they're suddenly worried about their futures. There's a whole bunch of reasons, and we'll come back to that. But the other part of this is that when you go from, you know, complacency to finding pain to aggravating pain to presenting a solution, that doesn't apply right now because the first 3 steps of that are already done. People have found their pain and their pain is aggravated. We do not need to, and we should not be going and pointing out problems to people right now. They already know that, and we're just going to make them feel worse. What we can do is just turn up at step 4 and go, hey, we've got a solution. And people aren't even going to say, what's the solution for? They're going to know what the solution is for because they know what the problem is. Back to that, not talking about the C word thing. So really focus on solving problems for people, and just think about in the messaging that you're sending out, whether it's emails to previous inquiries, whether it's emails to current students, or whether it's trying to generate new leads, just think about the fact that the messaging needs to be around, hey, we've got an answer for you, without even needing to point out to them what the problem is. That's probably the first and only time, I think, in our RTO marketing that we're going to be in that position. Okay, but just back to costs for a second, because that's what I was originally going to talk about. So typically, if you're going to do, let's talk about Facebook ads for a second, but the same thing is pretty much applying across the board. If you are an RTO and you're advertising on Facebook, then typically to get in front of 1,000 people, so that's the CPM, it's going to cost you between $25 and $40. Now, I'm not talking about boosted posts or any of that silliness. I'm talking about doing actual proper targeted ads using Ads Manager and Business Manager to targeted audiences. Now, something that you probably know, but let me just remind you, is that if you're doing Google ads, you're bidding against other people who want the same words. So if your words are diploma of beauty therapy, then you're bidding against other people in an auction for the words diploma of beauty therapy. So you're pretty much going to be in an auction with your direct competitors who sell your same product. When you're doing ads on social, you're bidding for the person rather than the product. So you are saying, well, I want to put my beauty therapy advertisement in front of young women between 18 and 23 who are not at university, who are working in retail, who've shown an interest in beauty products, who like to go out socializing, like whoever you figured out is that, that persona for your beauty products, you're basically bidding to be in front of them. So that means that you're competing for their eyeballs with everybody else who wants those young women, right? So you're not competing necessarily against other beauty therapy colleges, you're competing against anyone else who's advertising to 18 to 23-year-old social young women who work in retail. Now, that means typically to get in front of those people, because they are quite popular with advertisers because they do all the shopping and all the socializing and everything, you're probably spending at the higher end of the range. It's probably going to cost you about $40 to get 1,000 of those young women to see your advertisement, which is still pretty good. That's what, 4 cents each to show them your ad. There's not really much else that can compete with that. That's for a reasonably targeted audience. Now, something quite extraordinary has happened in the last couple of weeks. Currently, if you want to get in front of those young women, it's going to cost you $1.50 or something for the same 1,000. We've got a campaign running at the moment for an RTO that was sitting around $30-something per 1,000. I was looking at it a couple of days ago, and for the last week, it's averaged $1.13 per 1,000 people, which is absolutely makes sense when you think about it, because when travel, entertainment, retail, hospitality, all those things are not currently trading and not advertising, who's bidding against you? Who wants those people? Hardly anybody at the moment. So we've just got this crazy opportunity right now where advertising costs are like 20% in a lot of cases of what they were 3 weeks ago. And at the same time, the whole world is spending all their time on social media. So it's just nuts, and it won't last that long, I don't think. Hopefully it won't for other reasons, but there's just some crazy cheap eyeballs at the moment if you want to get eyeballs on your stuff. So one of the things that we're recommending a lot to the RTOs that we're working with is that if you don't feel comfortable running, salesy kind of ads right now, which I've got some reservations about, like, buy my thing, use this for brand awareness, which is not usually a thing that I'm a huge fan of. I'm a much bigger fan of that direct response marketing where you do an ad and people will pay you money. But right now, if you can pay $1 or $2 and you can have 1,000 people for that dollar know who you are and what you do, then you've got a really good opportunity to put out valuable content for people and really position yourselves as the experts. So if you're a workplace health and safety RTO, now's the time to be posting articles about workplace health and safety and using them as ads. So when I say run ads, I don't mean run something that looks like an ad. I mean take a piece of Facebook content and use the ads platform to drop it into the news feeds of all the people who are your target market. You imagine if you're a B2B RTO and you're trying to get in front of training managers right now, you imagine paying, $1 for every 1,000 training managers to drop articles that you've written that position you as experts in whatever it is that you're teaching. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Does that make sense? I'd be interested, what are your thoughts? Is anyone doing it? If anyone wants to pop something in the comments of the chats about whether you're actually doing it or trying it. I just think we've got this fantastic opportunity in the middle of all of this, and it would be a shame to waste it. Okay, the next part. So that's point one. Point one is ads are ridiculously cheap, and as long as we get our messaging right and we don't annoy people, then there's an opportunity to really get in front of a lot of people and be ready for them when they want to enroll. Second thing is, the second opportunity that I'm seeing is about the problem that RTOs can solve for people right now. So usually there's two main objections, right, out there when people are thinking about studying. There's time and there's money. So you put a time objection and a money objection together with no urgency, and that's our biggest challenge in enrolling. And that's always been our biggest challenge in any kind of lead generating activities, and that it's one thing to be able to generate leads, but then it takes a reasonably sophisticated sales process to turn those leads into actual enrollments. And we are seeing quite quickly that that is changing, because right now people have got time, a lot of them. I think people are being divided into two groups, aren't there? There's the people that are now absolutely flat out busy, and there's the people who've got more time on their hands than they've ever had. And it's the second group that we want to be talking to. Now, on the money side, as I'm sure you know, as of Monday last week, when the government announced that the COVID supplement, the extra $550 a fortnight, whatever it is going to apply to Oz Study as well. So if you are a Centrelink registered RTO, then at the moment, all of these people that have been stood down could do a course with you and get $1,100 and something a fortnight in Oz Study instead of having to go on the job seeker allowance. And it does a couple of things for them. I mean, one is that it removes any of the job hunting obligations, which I know have been cut right back anyway at the moment. But there's also a kind of an issue of, I don't know, what do you want to call it, identity, self-esteem, something like that, where it's much nicer for people to be able to say, I got stood down from my job, so I became a full-time student for a few months, than it is to say, I got stood down from my job and I was unemployed. Does that make sense? So there's an opportunity for you to position courses as, this person was thinking about doing a course for ages, now's their chance, and they can be a full-time student. And if you've got vet student loans or state government funding, or you can do flexible payment plans or something like that, then it's really quite a financially viable option for a lot of people. And what's been really interesting to me, I don't know if you guys have been seeing the same thing, is the number of people that I've talked to in all kinds of positions who have been stood down and are saying, you know what, I don't think I want to go back to my old job. So a friend of mine who's on 200 and something thousand as a sales manager for a business in the hospitality industry the other day was like, you know what, I really didn't like that job anyway, and I'm going to use this time to think about what I want to actually do. And then lots of young people that have been in retail and hospitality have gone, you know what I really have always wanted to do is work in childcare, or do my own business, or become a teacher, or become a beauty therapist, or probably not a great one at the moment, sorry, beauty therapists. But it's an interesting reset opportunity for people, I think, to think about what is it that they actually want to do and what course should they do to help them get there. And then for employers, if you're in the B2B space, if employers are taking the JobKeeper allowance, keeping their people on, but haven't got terribly much for them to do right now, it's a great chance for them to put groups of people through some courses when the government is actually paying a good chunk of their wages to do so. So we are in a position right now to solve quite a significant problem and to also overcome a couple of the usual barriers to people studying with us. So the third part of that, though, is that's all fine, but what about the delivery? So that's my special guest star that we're going to talk to in a moment, has got a solution for the delivery, because it's interesting, I think, at the moment that everybody now, of course, is jumping to online delivery. And there are those of you that have been delivering online for a while, and that's fine. You know, you've got 10 years of experience behind you, and you are going to find it much easier than the people that have had to quickly pivot. Am I allowed to use that word? However, the thing to think about, and I was talking to someone about this morning, is that I remember about 100 years ago when I was running an RTO and we delivered the frontline management qualification. It was in those days. It's now leadership and management, I think. And we did it really well, even if I do say so myself. We did it in corporate groups, B2B. We would go into companies and we would take their people through a leadership development program over about 12 months. And at the end of that 12 months, they would have learned something, and they had actually done something quite significant in the business and got a qualification for it. And then the government came out, you probably remember, those of you that have been in RTO land for long enough, the government came out with some funding and said, we're going to fund the Certificate 4 in frontline management. We want to put people on traineeships and train all the managers around the country. And initially, we were really excited about that, because we're like, that is so awesome. We've been selling this for money, and now we can do it for free. It's going to be so much easier to sell. But what happened, of course, was that every man and his dodgy dog started offering Certificate 4 in frontline management as a traineeship, and it became this real tick and flick kind of a thing where the RTO, the apprenticeship centre, and the employer all made some money, and nobody actually seemed to do much training. And we just got lost amongst all the clutter. It was really difficult to differentiate ourselves from all the other providers who were doing shonky diplomas and Cert 4s in frontline management. So one of the risks I think that we run at the moment, especially the established online providers, is that we're actually going to get a whole bunch more competition. There's going to be a whole bunch of people now popping up going, yeah, we do online as well. And for those of you that aren't online yet, you need to be able to go online in a way that differentiates yourself. And by differentiation, I mean, don't just chuck a couple of videos and a PDF online, give them a password and 760 multiple choice questions, and then go, right, here's your online course. So with that said, we did some work last year for an RTO, and one of the directors of that RTO is also the director of a really interesting technology company. So I have invited him to come and talk to us about what he's doing, and I have also persuaded him to come up with a bit of an offer for you guys. So now, Ruben, who I'm going to introduce to you, we did some campaigns for his RTO last year highlighting this technology that he's going to talk about, which, as you can probably see from the slide, is virtual reality based. And those campaigns went kind of crazy. So people were tagging each other without commenting, like hundreds of them, which is when you know you've got your messaging right, when everyone just wants to tag their friends and it stands alone. But the reason he's here today is because of the tech company side, not the RTO one, Vredo, which you may have heard of. They've got a platform that delivers online training for RTOs in virtual reality. As in the one, and he'll explain it better than me. I'll let you speak in a minute, Ruben, I promise. I'll unmute you. But like if you're teaching the Diploma of Travel and Tourism, you can take your students to Paris for a walk around. which right now is probably going to be the only way you can do that. Now, as soon as I say that, I think that probably immediately sounds difficult and expensive to set up. But I seem to have convinced Ruben to temporarily make it neither difficult or expensive. So Ruben, while you're muted, I'm just going to give your stuff away. So let me just figure out now how to add Ruben here as a co-host, and I will get you to talk to him. I'll get him to talk to you guys about his product. And then while he's doing that, I've got a video of it in action as well, which I'll queue up to play for you because it is actually pretty cool. Right, Ruben, where are you?
Good morning. I think you got my audio now?
I muted you. Hi, thank you. Sorry, I'm just giving away your stuff while I thought I had you on mute.
No worries at all. Well, thanks for the opportunity, Melanie. It's an awesome opportunity to connect and follow your couple of awesome strategies. And I think where you've touched on the differentiation is obviously something that we think Vredo really has to offer in terms of taking what people are currently looking for in terms of that flexible remote learning experience, but being very much differentiated to be very, very immersive and very, very engaging. So the student experience is quite superior. And not only do we see that really being a short-term opportunity, but we really believe that what's happening right now in the marketplace is going to accelerate a rate of remote learning such that even on the other side of the COVID-19 crisis that we're all facing, I think what we're going to see is, we've sort of trained these millions and millions and millions of learners how to remote learn. And some of them are kind of going to like it, and they're not necessarily going to be piling back into classrooms anytime soon. So I think for those organisations wrestling with this challenge now, there's what's the masking tape and paddle pop stick sort of solution that can patch together and conquer a challenge right now, versus what's the strategic innovation we can do to position our business for long-term success. And
now,
I
one of the things on that, Ruben, can I just chip in, is
absolutely.
that at the moment, and you're probably finding the same with your own RTO as well, I think that a lot of RTOs are struggling with kind of mental bandwidth, if that's the right kind of word.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah, well, I want to do that, but I've got to have an immediate solution. And can you talk a bit about that and how, tell us about what your product is, but then also what you can do for people at the moment.
Absolutely. So Vredo, as you've articulated, Melanie, is an education platform. So it's content agnostic, and it allows you to deliver all of your training content in virtual reality. So what that means is that a teacher or a trainer who might be delivering in a classroom, normally they might have PowerPoint slides, they might have some videos they might share with the class, they might share some whiteboard brainstorming sessions with the class, all those various activities and ice-breaking activities they would do in a class. They can now do that in virtual reality. So the students and the trainer are both wearing a headset, a virtual reality headset. The students might be at home or wherever they might be. The trainer as well can be flexible. They can be located anywhere. And once they pop that headset on their head, they actually get teleported into a virtual reality classroom where the students can choose where they want to sit. The students can talk amongst each other, they can ask questions, they can interact just like they could in a normal classroom. And then obviously, as you've also articulated, there is some powerful additional features that the trainer can undertake, such as teleporting the class to various locations via the use of 360 videos and using holograms to bring concepts to life. So all of that's done very basically via a content management system. A trainer literally just nominates, okay, this is the video I want to use, this is the slides I want to use, and that's all available directly for their class. And as you've highlighted, Melanie, we're working with RTOs at the moment and just doing that whole setup piece for them. So to take what might seem a barrier, an obstacle, and something really hard, and we're just setting the entire platform up for them. So queuing up slides, videos, getting all that set up. So all that has to happen is their trainer steps into their virtual reality headset and shares and runs that training class.
So you're saying that if they've got whatever they're running in a classroom right now, they can give it to you and you can stick it all in the virtual reality platform, and then they just have to turn up with the headset instead of turn up in the class. Am I understanding?
Yeah, that's it. They can just basically operate. So we've taken away that whole setup piece and just enabled people to just get on with the business of doing what they do best, which is training and inspiring trainees. And so being able to take that setup barrier away is something we've been working hard on. And I think for people to conceptualize, and certainly that the video might help give that direct introduction to what a class sort of looks and feels like, so that they can have more of an insight into what it actually feels like for the trainer and the student.
All right, while you're talking, I'm just going to stop my share for a second and get my video going. Give me 2 minutes.
No worries.
And while we're talking about that, can you talk about, like, I love the travel and tourism example, but can you talk about an example of how it's been effective while I'm getting the video sorted?
Sure. So teleporting into 360-degree videos is one of a great benefit of using the platform. So it really takes some reimagining in a lot of cases around how a training and delivery might happen. So use the example of a tourism class. So let's say we're doing a diploma of travel and tourism, and we might doing a discussion on various locations. Now, in a traditional classroom, you might be able to show a YouTube video or something like that. What we can do in Vredo is we can actually teleport them into a 360-degree video, so it actually feels like someone is there. So whether that be, Times Square, Paris, Antarctica, wherever it might be, we can grab footage of that location, 360-degree footage, and the whole class goes there together. So they actually go there as like a virtual field trip. So the trainer plus all of the students will be at Times Square, and the trainer can say, if you look to your left, you'll see the billboard of whatever it might be, and they can go to Paris and they can say, listen, if you look at the base of the Eiffel Tower on the right, that's the fastest elevator. So if you're working with clients, direct them to there. So it's a great way in which they can bring the content to life, or actually visiting those locations.
That is so cool. Now, can one of my advisors tell me that you can see the YouTube screen at the moment? And
yes.
You can? Cool. All right, let me put the video on and let's have a look. See you, Paul. Thank you for coming. All right.
Vredo, the virtual reality education platform designed to conquer learning challenges and change the way we look at classrooms. Vredo has all the convenience of a real classroom. There's a whiteboard, a projector screen. You can change students' seats, talk to them individually or as a group. But Vredo also allows us to change the way we teach. We can project 3D holograms.
I'm just pausing that for a second. Terry, you've got it, says it's really tiny. Is everybody else seeing it on full screen, or is it just in a little screen in the corner?
No, it went to full screen, I think, once you, yeah.
It might be just a layout thing, Terry. You might have to just open that window a bit more. All right, I'll start it again.
Into the classroom, and even teleport the entire class to exotic locations using 360 video, redefining the meaning of school excursions. Vredo is designed for any organisation that conducts training, from primary schools to universities, tutoring services and corporate training environments. With an online learning management system, Vredo is fully customisable. Upload 3D holograms, 360 videos and photos, PowerPoint presentations, 2D video and 2D images. Students can also access the learning management system, where they can download screenshots, audio notes and class recordings from their classes. Students can be spread across the country, multiple organisations or even the world, brought together without any travel costs or inconvenience. For both teachers and students, Vredo is a game changer. Think an ancient history class teleporting to Machu Picchu, a global engineering firm coming together for a professional development session, or students from all around the world joining in for a French lesson. The list goes on.
It's a lot less distracting, and as I like business, it's very interesting. The virtuality, it's new, it's different, it's fun. I like it. I definitely recommend it.
Applications of Vredo are limitless. If your institute prides itself on innovation or aspires to be the best, Contact our team via our website.
Right, cool.
So yes, obviously that's a 2D representation of Redo classrooms. Now, obviously, once you've got a headset on, you're fully immersed in that classroom. So it actually physically feels like you're in that classroom. And we have a whole variety of different environments that work out of the box. So that example there focused on a lecture theatre. We've also got a boardroom that classes can be hosted in. We've actually recreated Facebook's head office in Menlo Park in their lobby area, and we host classes in that environment. And we've even got the Starship Enterprise, which is actually circumnavigating the Earth, and actually classes can be hosted on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. So it's a great way of engaging students in terms of using some of those unique and different environments where the students can meet. And then from there, they can participate in whatever learning content is being delivered. So as I mentioned, it is content agnostic, which means any sort of course or content can be delivered in Redo.
So 2 things that I would be thinking if I were an RTO right now, and just by the way, for the record, I'm not involved in Redo other than I think it's really cool, which is why I wanted to introduce Ruben to you. What time and money? So time-wise, you guys will do the work in terms of putting it together right now. Is that so? That's your
That's right. Exactly right. So doing all that setup and whatnot for people. And I think Rachel via the Q&A has asked about headsets, where you get them from. So in the video, they actually featured what they call Samsung Gears. There's actually a better device now that all sort of students are used, which is called an Oculus Go. An Oculus Go retails for $230 in Australia. So the student would require a headset, and then the organisation, the Redo Classrooms works as a licensing model, and so it works out at about $27 per headset per month for access to the software platform, and then for the headset, as I said, about $230. I think Antonia also asked about rolling enrolments, and we've seen various organisations handle this in different ways. We do have an RTO we work with in Brisbane who operate in the fitness space. They have chopped up their course into, I think it's 16 workshops. Those workshops are each available every single week, and they use a booking app. So the students can actually work through the live classes at their own pace, just by nominating which class they want to book into. So different organisations handle it in different ways. Obviously, Redo Classrooms as a solution is for live training. And so it's a solution that it requires trainers and students meeting at that same time in a virtual environment. And the reason for that solution is it's obviously highly interactive. It allows for a two-way flow of information, with students asking questions, trainers interacting, running brainstorming sessions on the whiteboard, coming up with ideas and collaboration. We do have some other virtual reality solutions that work completely offline and don't involve live training. They're more modularized and compartmentalized. We actually call them Redo skill sets. But Redo Classrooms is for live training. And that's really the solution that is really being brought to bear with Redo Classrooms.
Okay, so can you clarify the money stuff for me? And I know then people can talk to you obviously individually.
Yeah, sure.
But, so normally what you used to do is you would charge like a reasonable chunk up front for setup and things like that. So you're changing that model at the moment with what's going on? Is that?
Yeah, so what we typically, the way in which the platform works, it has a setup fee for us to provision and set everything up. Then we have a licensing model, and then obviously it operates under that. So at the moment for RTOs this month, we're waiving the setup fee and actually doing the setup on their behalf, just to allow them to get back to the business of what they're doing, which is getting busy training and assessing students. And so we're helping RTOs get fully set up and hit the ground running.
So you're completely waiving it?
Correct. So at the moment they've got a training fee, which just allows us to train and set up the trainers and the administrators of the program, and then as I said, it defaults to just a monthly license fee per headset.
And that's per headset, which is effectively per student, isn't it?
That's it. Yes.
Oh, and that was how much again? Sorry,
$27 per headset per month. Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty good. Cool. Actually, that's really good, isn't it? And so if people want to talk to you, actually, we'll give people a chance for any more questions, and then what I'll do.
Yeah, I've just seen Rachel's question there in terms of could it be used for remote workplace training too, and I think she's used the word future, and I'd sort of counter that by saying it works right now, and we sort of cut our teeth in the formal training space in helping schools and RTOs and the like, but just in the last 4 months or so, we sort of crossed over and sort of started looking at targeting industry. And ironically, I ran a webinar not so dissimilar to this last week for the Mining and Resources Council, and the solutions they were looking to solve was training and orientation and onboarding of new staff. And so what they're hoping to do is send headsets out to a new staff member where they do all of their training, orientation and onboarding at home before they fly in, fly out on site. And so that's a solution we're actually implementing right now. So for Rachel, yeah, absolutely, we can do remote workplace training. And whether that's orientation and onboarding, site inductions, whether it's for RTOs delivering workplace health and safety training on site, rather than shipping the trainer all around the place, they could ship out a headset for the learner to connect with, and all they have to do is pop that headset on and be able to come in and meet with their trainer for that session.
So if you're a B2B RTO and you're like, I've got no work now because I can't go to my clients, this is actually a potential solution for that as well.
Absolutely. So obviously the trainer can be located anywhere, and headsets be delivered out to students or learners wherever they might be, and they just need to pop those headsets on and be teleported into that one virtual classroom together.
No, that's awesome, Ruben. And I think the thing about this is that we kind of think of virtual reality as being a future thing that is, you either need to be really techie or it's not here yet. But I mean, how long have you been doing this in your own RTO now?
This is 3 years. So we've had enrolments, this is moving into our 3rd year. And so as I suggested, that's typically been with a lot of schools and sort of, as I said, more traditional learning. But as I said, it's only been really in the last few months, as I said, it's sort of been crossing over into industry as well. And so we're seeing interest in all manner of different industries. But certainly our imagining of the platform was always to serve traditional learning. And so it works beautifully out of the box for RTOs, colleges, schools, because that's how it was sort of imagined when we had the sort of the vision and the opportunity of building out the platform.
And I guess the thing, I see Tony's got a question, we'll come back to that in a second, but I guess the thing at the moment is there's kind of an opportunity for RTOs, isn't there, to go, okay, especially if you've got some government funding, like if you're a Vet Student Loans RTO or Smart and Skilled or whatever, and you can say you've got you can run really cheap advertising to generate inquiries and then talk to them about going on Oz Study and getting government funding for their course, and then send them out a headset and they can do it all remotely. It's kind of a nice little
yeah, it is. I think a couple of things you mentioned there with VSL, Smart Skill, C3G, HLS, whatever it may be, all of those things, whether it's passing census dates or completing an assessment in order for an RTO to generate income, they really rely on progression. And I think that's where the student experience is critical, because you're right, there's likely a wave of students wanting to sign up to get the Oz Study benefit. But if providers are utilising VSL, C3G, Smart and Skilled, etc., they desperately need to see progression to be able to see that income realised. And so how we engage the students and how we immerse the students is just so fundamental, because you touched on it at the start. If someone was to throw up a Word document or a PDF document and a video probably likely to have low engagement and low progression. Whereas obviously what we've seen in Vredo is high immersion and therefore very high student engagement. And so it sets them up to progress, and that's just so fundamental for an RTO, because we know it's not just yeah, because it's not just an enrolment game. Progression is absolutely fundamental for the income via VSL and C3G, etc.
Otherwise, they don't get paid if they don't do anything. I see Tony's got a couple of questions there. Rhoda, can you see them? Could you answer those?
Yeah, absolutely. So first question was, how difficult is it for a remote learner to set up, and what other equipment do they need? And so the Oculus Go, which I mentioned before, is a complete standalone headset. So the only other thing they'd need, Tony, is internet access. Again, it doesn't need to be spectacularly good internet access as well. The way we've designed the platform is that everything is pre-packaged as sort of a downloadable content. And so we look at, we don't actually live stream anything other than the actual students in the class. So it's actually been modeled to work on ADSL internet, and hence NBN, etc., is just an absolute bonus. So they actually don't need any other equipment other than the standalone Oculus Go headset. And in terms of what do we need to create the environment we want to show, landscape and construction. So to that question, Tony, out of the box, Vredo Classrooms has 4 default environments. It has the lecture theatre environment, it has an outer space environment, has a boardroom environment, and the social media Facebook environment. We can actually curate an environment for your organisation though. So if you wanted your students to learn in a landscape, particular landscape or a particular environment, we can actually design that environment for you. It does have a cost associated with it, obviously, but yeah, students can actually be taught anywhere. We can actually design or model or recreate any sort of space that you can conceptualize you'd like your learners to learn in.
So in terms of cost, and I know it's going to depend on each individual RTO, but is it going to be like hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands? Like
to create their own environment?
Yeah, like if you were teaching landscaping or something and you wanted to get them into a garden, what kinds of costs?
I suppose there's there's I suppose teleporting them to a garden in a 360-degree video. So a 360-degree video, clients sort of utilize those in a couple of different ways. One way they sort of collect them is just using the likes of YouTube. So many are not aware, but YouTube actually has a 360-degree video channel. So there's literally millions and millions and millions of videos there that could be utilized in content. Some clients purchase their own 360-degree video camera and actually capture footage for their classes themselves, and then we have other clients who approach us to capture the 360-degree video footage for them. And again, obviously, if we're doing for the organisation and we're having to send a crew out on site to capture the footage and whatnot, that has obviously costs associated with it, but 360-degree video cameras these days sort of start below $1,000. You can get a pretty good quality one, or obviously on YouTube, the content is free. So that's to teleport the class into that sort of environment. If we wanted to teach the class, so instead of the classroom environment you saw in the video, if we wanted to 100% have a bespoke, customized environment, normally when we create those, they typically, they do vary a little bit based on specifications, but normally about $8,000 to $10,000 it costs to create a fully bespoke environment for an organisation.
Okay, but they can just use a lot of for something like showing them around different things, you could probably find something on YouTube in the 360 video.
100%. Yeah, most organisations, unless it's really bespoke content, can find amongst the millions and millions of videos online. Because in addition to YouTube, there is some 360-degree video marketplaces as well, and so there is a lot of publicly available content that can often be used, particularly to get someone up and running and get them started, and then down the track as they're optimizing learning content and the like, and starting to really reimagine how a class format could use by utilising 360 videos, they might be thinking about how they can create more curated, bespoke content for their particular course. And it's at that stage they might think, okay, well maybe this is the time we need to invest in a camera ourselves, or look at outsourcing the capture of that 360 video footage. And again, that capture can be done by anyone. The content just needs to be uploaded to Vredo. It's a basic drag and drop menu option, and so it's very easy for organisations to use.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ruben. I just think this is so exciting, this stuff, and it really is going to be the differentiation between your standard kind of online training provider and one, especially with the funded stuff where we actually rely on people not just enrolling but actually completing something. If people want to get into, well, I'm just conscious of the time, we should probably wrap up and let people get back to what they're doing. If they want to talk to you some more about this, what's the best way to do that?
Happy to email, phone call, either works. Obviously, we're a bit like how you opened the introduction, Melanie. We're just desperately keen to help people that we can at this stage. You know, we recognise there's a lot of people in pain and hurt at the moment, and so if we can help lift that burden through making some sort of transition and new solution as easy as possible for them, that's really the mission we're on at the moment with the clients we're working with. So certainly I can...
You want to type your email and phone number into the chat for people?
Yeah, that's a great idea actually. So I'll type my...
Should have done a slide with it, sorry. It was kind of a last minute thing.
So I've just typed in my...
It's ruben@vredo.com.
Yeah, really easy one, and my contact number there as well. And so yeah, welcome anyone to shoot me a quick email or give a quick call. Really happy to have a chat and just, as I said, really experienced at solution ideation in terms of, okay, let's look at the challenge we're trying to conquer here, and could this be a good fit? Could this really add value for your organisation? As I said, if I can help in that discussion and help get the cogs turning around ideas and ways in which the challenges can be conquered with such a new solution, really happy to participate in such discussions.
That's cool. I think we look back in a couple of years' time, and I think we'll see lots of RTOs on Vredo. So all the best with it, Ruben, and all the best to everybody else as well. If there's anything, like Ruben just said, anything I can help you with, just let me know, paid or unpaid. I'm not worried about that. I'm just keen to do my bit at the moment. And if anybody didn't manage to capture Ruben's details out of the chat when we close this meeting, then just shoot me an email and I'll forward it on to him, and we'll put you in touch with each other as well. So I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Ruben.
Thank you, Melanie. It was wonderful.
No, that's cool. I will close this off, and then for the people that were on this webinar, I will shoot you out the link if you like. Actually, if anyone's got a second, just to give me some feedback, whether there was, whether you found that useful, that would be really good. If there's anything else that you'd like me to cover next time, that would also be good to know. Thank you, Terry, thank you, Tony. It is kind of interesting, isn't it? There's a whole new world out there, and we can just kind of live in our little bubble and not be able to notice it really. All right, goodbye, have a good day.
Thanks, Melanie, take care.
Thanks, Ruben, see you, bye.